Hi, my name's Isaac, and this is a brand new GMC Yukon AT4, and today I'm gonna review it for you guys. You know, as I was getting ready for this review, I was putting my boots on, and I realized that these boots are kind of like this AT4 trim. I could use these to go on a great hike, and they'd serve me very well, just like this AT4 is incredibly useful off-roading. But am I gonna go off-roading or for a hike? Probably not. But the option is there if I wanted to use them for that purpose. In reality, I'm probably just gonna go to Burger King later. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Jones GMC for allowing me to borrow this vehicle to review. For all your GMC needs in the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area, I'll leave a link to Jones's website in the description below. Starting out at the front of this GMC Yukon AT4 XL, which is a giant name for a giant SUV, the standout visual difference between this and other trims of the Yukon is the skid plate down here with the red tow hooks. Now this has a much better approach angle than other Yukons, so it does make it the ideal off-roading trim for this truck. I guess you could call it a truck, or an SUV, whatever you prefer. Now up front, you're gonna have a camera incorporated right below the GMC logo. That is gonna give you a front view for off-roading, and it also incorporates into the 360-degree camera system that this has that I'll talk about a little bit more when we move to the interior. You'll have full LED headlights right here with LED daytime running lights and LED fog lights down here, as well as parking sensors which span the entirety of the front grille. I'm gonna interject here from the future. The day that I filmed this particular segment was too windy for me to set my tripod up, so I wasn't able to talk about the engine specifications on location. This particular Yukon is powered by a 5.3-liter V8, making 355 horsepower, 383 pound-feet of torque, and it's paired to a 10-speed automatic transmission. This is an aggressive and very commanding looking SUV. I've always liked the look of the GMCs, whether it's a truck or an SUV. I think they have really stood out, except that one late 2000s GMC, like 2007, 2008. I thought that looked a little silly, but you know, everybody has one. This really grew into its own. I think this Yukon is probably the best looking of the generation so far. And if we move down here to the wheels and tires, we'll have 275 60R off-roading tires, around 20-inch wheels. I think these Goodyears are really nice looking. They're not the beefiest, but again, as I mentioned up top, I don't know how often people are actually gonna be taking this thing off-road. If they really are, they can switch those tires out if they'd like. And then you'll have a GMC badge up here, your AT4 badge down here, and then a mirror with a turn signal indicator incorporated into it, a camera for that aforementioned 360-degree camera system. You'll have blind spot monitoring. They are powered mirrors, heated as well. And then you're gonna have your keyless entry right here. One cool feature is if you open the door, you will have power running boards that fold out automatically. And then once the door is closed, those running boards will fold back in to give you better clearance. And then if we move to the back of the exterior right here, you'll have a backup camera incorporated again below the GMC logo, your Yukon badge, your AT4 badge, and then there is also parking sensors down here. And then this is where your towing hitch would be, but it hides it to give it a cleaner look if you aren't planning to tow. Moving to the key fob really quickly, this thing has a lot of buttons. So obviously you get lock, unlock, panic. This even has remote start and the ability to open the lift gate from the key. But my personal favorite button is this one. So what it does is it opens up just this top part of the lift gate where the glass is, so you can reach in easily and grab something if you need to. This is a feature that I feel like a lot of SUVs neglect nowadays, and I'm so thankful that the Yukon has it. I mean, what a cool, unique feature. And up here, what's even cooler is they've incorporated the rear windshield wiper to fit right here so that when you close the glass, nothing is impeded there, and it can still wipe here while giving it a cleaner look on the SUV as a whole. I really love how they incorporated that. Now, opening the liftgate entirely, as I mentioned, you can open it from here. You also have the ability to close it from right here, and you're clearly going to get a lot of space. So you can open this up for even more under storage. What do you call that? It's not seat, under the seat storage, it's just under the mat storage. And then you're going to have a household outlet right there, and you have the ability to drop the third row seats if you want, and you can drop the second row seats, giving you a ton of room back here. I mean, look at how spacious it is. You could fit a twin mattress back here. And with the prices of Yukons nowadays, if you buy one of these without asking your wife, you might be sleeping back here. So it's good that they give you the option at least. One more thing I want to highlight is you can bring the third row seats automatically back up from here, though the second row only go down. You have to manually bring those back up. That all being said, let's take a look at the interior. Moving to the interior on this AT4, it is incredibly luxurious in here, nearly Denali levels of opulence. Ooh, there's a word I don't use a lot, opulence. One thing I wanted to highlight almost instantly is when you go to unlock your vehicle and you open the door, you'll be greeted by this awesome screen that starts right here, and then these red lines continue over to this screen, and it says GMC and AT4 right there. I love that design. Chevy does that now, and then the GMCs do as well. I think it's so cool. You get that unique graphic for your trim. What a nice touch. And then if we move over here to the door panel, it is softly appointed up here with leather and this really nice orangish brown contrast stitching. And then you can see down here, you'll have your window controls, your mirror controls, your power folding mirrors, because of course these power fold. And then fronts are auto one touch up and down. The backs, you do have to hold the button. And then over here, you'll have your four-wheel drive controls right here, your headlights. This little row of buttons actually controls the heads-up display that we'll talk about in a minute. And then you have some safety features right here, hill descent control, your traction control off as well. And then this button gives you access to the 360-degree camera that this has. It's kind of a quick access button. And then you have your electronic parking brake. So let's turn this thing on fully, and we'll touch upon some of those buttons a little bit more. As you can see, this gauge cluster screen is fully digital. If you couldn't tell by that startup screen, no actual gauges here. It is all a screen. I really like it. Very customizable. And then if we go back to hit this button over here, we can see that's going to pull up our 360-degree camera system. So you'll have a lot of different angles. I think GM right now probably has the best 360-degree camera system of any manufacturer that I've reviewed, because they give you so many options with where you want to place the camera for trailering, for backing up, if you just want to do like the front view. I mean, there's a ton of options. And of course, you get the overhead view as well. Canceling out of that, if we go back over here to our HUD, you can see the button right there. I'm going to zoom in. I think you can see it. Yeah, you should be able to see it right here. The digital display right there of your speedometer, so that will stay up with the current speed limit, because this also has the ability to check what the speed limit is on the road. So that's a really useful feature. It does not actually flicker like it is right now. It's doing that because the camera's refresh rate is higher than the LEDs in that. So that's really neat. And then your steering wheel is pretty standard General Motors. It is leather with stitching as well. Very comfortable. I've mentioned how these are comfortable in the past. You'll have a lot of your controls right here for more safety features, front gap adjustment right there, and then you'll have your cruise control, Bluetooth, your channel changing for this center, or sorry, not channel changing, your buttons to change the center screen here, what you want to look at. Very customizable here. If we go, you can go in here to settings, and you can actually choose what you want your layout to have right there. So that's like incredible. Like if you just want your tire pressure up constantly, I don't know why you would, but you can do that on here. So that's really neat. And you can adjust both sides if you wanted to.
So that is also just an incredible feature. Glad to see that there is a wealth of customization. Hold on a second. Now I need to know if I can do this. Yep, okay. If I was a maniac and just wanted my tire pressure on both sides of the cages, I could do that. That is something you can do on this. I know so many people were probably wondering about that, and you can do that if you wanted to. But other features in this area, you do have a heated steering wheel. This, of course, does come equipped with heated and cooled seats, which we'll get to in a second. But first, I wanted to touch upon the gear selector because it is a very unique one. So this is your gear selector. It is buttons. It's not an actual shifter. So what you do is it's in park right now. You press for park. You pull for reverse. That's going to bring up your camera again. Then you push for neutral. Pull again for drive, and again, if you want to be in drive and leave that camera up, you can do that. That's also very useful for off-roading. If you want to see what the approach angle is. I wanted to say departure angle. Obviously, the backup camera helps with that, but the approach angle. And then down here, you can switch to this is kind of the strangest manual shifter I've ever seen, because normally you get paddle shifters or something like that, but you could do that down here. And pretty intuitive. I don't mind it. Takes a little getting used to, but I still think it's better than Ram's little dial. I think that dial is not very good. Just my personal opinion. And then fully moving here into the infotainment screen. We are still in demo mode because this is a newer vehicle. And this does have a very intuitive, very quick touchscreen. I've always liked General Motors infotainment systems. They've been very quick. Even though they're not always the largest, they are still very, very quick. This particular one is fairly large, and it does match the rest of the interior. I don't really necessarily think you need a screen much bigger than this, though I do really like what they're doing with the Sierras. I think that's a really cool design. You'll have Google Maps built into this, which is really neat, so you can tool around with that. You also, of course, have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Sirius XM is obviously provided, and then if you want, you can still listen to AM radio. I don't know why you would, but I'm positive there's somebody else out there that's like, does it have AM radio? Yes, sir. Yes, it does. And then moving below that, you'll have this really nice piece of leather stitching just below the screen and above the climate vents. Lovely attention to detail. You very easily could have made that plastic. I guess I'm talking directly to General Motors there. You could have done this, but you didn't. Thank you, Mr. General Motors. And so that's really nice attention to detail. You can see the leather right here wraps down as well. And then in this area, you're going to have your volume controls and your home button for the screen if you want to use traditional dials. Again, I really like that General Motors includes this, and you don't have to do some sliding thing on the screen to turn up the volume. You can just spin it from there. And obviously, you can do it from the steering wheel. Those controls are located on the back here to change the stations and the volume. And then down here, you'll have your climate controls and your heated seats, the aforementioned heated seats. If you just want to do back, you can do that. But if you want back and bottom, you can do that. And then you can do cooled seats. I'm going to turn those off because it's a really cold day and I don't need to be colder than I already am. I think that's unique, though, that GM gives you the option to just do a heated back. I think that's really cool. They must have done testing with that. And I'm glad that they included it. Down here, you'll have wireless charging, USB and USB-C, and then a 12-volt outlet down there. And then if we open this up, a lot of storage space in here. There's some boxes and stuff, because again, this is a new vehicle. No USBs in here, though. Again, it is a pretty ginormous storage area in there. If we move up here, where's the button? There we go, vent shade. You have a panoramic sunroof up here. Still going. Maybe I should have opened this before I started filming. Still going. There we go, perfect. Very, very cool. Lets a ton of light into the cabin here. You also have the ability to drop the third row seats from here. And you can obviously open the window if you want. Tilt it, a lot of different customization options. You'll have your buttons for your garage door opener up here, and OnStar is also accessible. This is also the button to open the rear lift gate if you want. So you can tap that, and it's gonna open that from up here. Of course, as I showed you earlier, you do have the ability to open that a couple of other ways, but you do have just a ton of customization. Pretty much every option that is available in this SUV is checked. The Denali does use some higher grade materials and does have a couple more premium features, but this AT4 is incredibly well equipped. You'll see it says AT4 stitched into the headrests right there, and you have this really nice brownish orange leather texture that continues down the rest of the seat, and obviously that's accented all through the leather here throughout this interior. But that pretty much wraps up the front of the interior. Let's take a look at the second row seats. Moving to the second row, you can see there are these gigantic screens attached to the backs of the headrests. Gone are the days of the rear seat DVD player, replaced by these. They are very intuitive, very quick screens. You'll have YouTube, YouTube Kids, Hulu built in, and it does have spots for HDMI ports. So for example, if you wanted to hook up a video game console, you could do that back here. There's even connections for Bluetooth headphones so you don't distract the driver at all. Oh my word, these are incredibly intuitive. They do seem to be about at the same level as an iPad, though you couldn't hook up a PlayStation to an iPad easily. And so you have these really, really cool intuitive screens. And then up here, you'll have climate vents, and the rear seat climate controls are down here, along with heated seats for the second row. You'll have USB-C and then HDMI ports, as well as a household outlet way at the bottom. Cup holders right there, and this second row is captain's chairs. They are manually adjusting, but still very comfortable, and the stitching continues back here with this brownish orange coloring. And it even continues to the third row, which is really nice. Not a lot of vehicles do that. By the time you get to the third row, they kind of skimp out, but not here on the GMC. And this is probably the best view of that panoramic moon/sunroof, whatever you would call it, a moon or sunroof. Whatever you want to be looking at, it's up there. And so very, very comfortable back here. The front seats are powered. These, as I mentioned, are manually adjusting. And I have probably 3 or 4 inches of legroom and probably 3 inches of headroom at 5'9". So very comfortable back here. Let's take a quick look at the third row. Moving to the third row of the Yukon XL, this is incredibly spacious back here. You'd think that they'd skimp out on the third row or that it would be really tight. But no, the Yukon is gigantic, and the third row still gives me 2 or 3 inches of legroom, and I still get probably 2 inches of headroom at 5'9". That's really nice. Like, you could fit adults fairly comfortably back here, which is almost unheard of in a third row. And you get vents back here, lights back here. You're also going to get USB-C and the ability to drop the seats from back here. So a lot of features back here. Obviously, you get cup holders too. That's a mainstay of third rows. But overall, I mean, this C-pillar is gigantic and a little daunting. That might make you a little claustrophobic, but it feels spacious back here, and I really don't feel cramped, which is exactly what you want in an SUV this large, and I'm very impressed. Let's take this thing for a spin. All right, driving the Yukon AT4. You know, for as big of an SUV as this is, it doesn't really feel that cumbersome to drive. It's actually fairly responsive, especially on the acceleration and the braking. And I love that it has that heads-up display that tells you the speed limit. I think that's very useful and a really cool feature on this thing. And yes, there are some blind spots in this looking back. That C-pillar, as I mentioned earlier, is ginormous. But honestly, it really doesn't feel as big as you'd think it would. It's very comfortable, and it has quite a commanding view when you're on the road. But now we're stopped at a red light next to an abandoned gas station. You ever wonder just what happened to that gas station? Where did it just, I mean, everybody needs gas. Was there too much gas? Was there too many gas stations and they drove this guy out of business? Did he not have enough snacks that people wanted? Did he maybe not have the right flavor of Kit Kat? What drove that gas station out of business? Because he's right here along all these dealerships. You'd think that you just wonder. Don't you wonder sometimes? Maybe that's just me. I don't know. Anyway, here we are. We're about to get on the highway here, getting up to a little bit more speed. Of course, I do all these reviews in rush hour traffic because that's the optimal time to test a vehicle's handling and performance. I guess ideally, a lot of people will probably be sitting in traffic with these. Picked my sister up in Newark, New Jersey the other week, and there was like 100 of these things outside the airport. People just waiting and shuttling with the Yukons and the Suburbans. And I'm like, yeah, I guess this is I'll tell you, this is a great vehicle to just sit in. If you just got to sit in traffic or you're sitting waiting for somebody, this is an excellent vehicle for that, because it does have the amazing comfortability. One cool thing I wanted to touch upon that I can't really show you, but I'm going to have to describe is the parking sensors on this and the forward collision warning work in a kind of a cool way. So what happens is if you're in front of something, you're about to bump something, it actually vibrates your seat to alert you that something is in front of you, or when you're backing up, you're about to hit something. That's really useful. You know, it can beep, but that vibration really gets your attention really quick. So I like that a lot. Getting it up to speed here, accelerating. It does shift through those gears a little slower than a sports car, but it definitely does get up to speed well, and it's an incredibly smooth ride.
That's going to wrap up this video, guys. Man, my microphone was working against me in this video. First, with the wind, and then as I was editing through this footage, I realized that it died at some points, so I had to dub some stuff, and unfortunately, this ending part is dubbed because I do not have the audio for it. But what I normally say here at the end is that I am a Christian, and if you have any prayer requests, please feel free to leave those in the comment section below. And I like to leave off on a weekly scripture verse. This week's is Colossians 3:15. Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Take care.